The Final Straw. From Gypsy's book, My Time to Stand. Page 3. People really want to know, what was the final straw? When was the moment when I decided it was her or me? Here you go, y'all, on page 3. 1 month before the murder, my mother tried to cut my throat. At least that's how I saw it. The cause of concern suddenly was my voice. It's so high-pitched, it's so squeaky. My mother complained to my ear, nose, and throat specialist. I thought my voice was distinct, like my uncommon name. Or maybe it was a family trait to be proud of. We both knew women on my mother's side of the family with similar high-pitched voices. Besides, Nick said my childlike chirp was sexy, so I didn't understand the issue and I told my mother so. Never in front of the doctors, of course. I knew better than that. But on the way home, I went on and on like, well, a squeaky wheel. There's nothing wrong with my voice, I said with a whimper, as she pushed me in my portable wheelchair to the parking lot where our car was parked outside the hospital in downtown Kansas City. You heard the doctor. That voice of yours might mean there's a problem with your larynx, and that problem could be causing your sleep apnea, she said, her word final. No matter my sassing, we were going to go ahead and meet with the pulmonologist the ENT had just recommended, though we both knew very well I didn't have sleep apnea. When the pulmonologist spoke to my mother, it was as if I wasn't in the room. Why don't we do an exploratory surgery of her larynx? He suggested. A simple operation of the voice box will get to the bottom of any respiratory or vocal abnormalities. What I heard was, let's cut Gypsy's throat for no reason at all. Was this the plan for the rest of my life? To cut me up and open, piece by piece, just because she could? She was making me play Russian roulette with scalpels instead of bullets. If it wasn't the voice box surgery, the odds seemed to be increasingly in favor of me dying on one of the operating tables. Mama, what if they cut me wrong and then I lose my voice and I can't talk? I don't think she would have minded at all. Do you remember when you told me you'd protect me from people who want to hurt me? I asked Nick. Yes, darling. Will you still protect me? Yes, Nick answered. Even from my mother? Yes. Now listen to another version of the last straw story that Gypsy told in her interview with Dr. Phil.
Tell me in your own words what happened that night.
My mother and I had got into an argument 2 days before, and it was about my feeding tube. I'm like, I no longer need this feeding tube. Can we please have it removed? And she said no. And I had an upcoming surgery, and I didn't want to have it, so I asked her, please tell the doctor I don't need this surgery. I've had it 20 times before. Why do we have to have it again? And she's like, there's nothing I can do about it. The doctor wants it. And so I became very numb to plan B. And I talked to Nick. He had me talk to Victor, who initially was the one that was going to do the murder. And he was like, ask Victor, please. And I said, Victor, will you please come kill my mother for me? Because I can't do it myself.
Let's look at some of the big differences between Gypsy's stories. In her book, she says, the argument with her mom was a month before the murder. She says it was going to be a new surgery for her voice box, no mention of her feeding tube. In Gypsy's interview with Dr. Phil, Gypsy says she had a big fight with her mom 2 days before the murder. Gypsy says she told her mom she's had this surgery 20 times before she doesn't need it again. So whatever it wasn't the voice box surgery. Gypsy asks for her feeding tube to be removed, but her mom refuses. Here is a list of all the surgeries Gypsy Rose has had while under her mother's care. This information comes from the Good Wives Network. Eye muscle surgery. 4 times Nissen fundoplication, which is a surgical procedure that treats gastroesophageal reflux disease, or GERD, by wrapping the upper part of the stomach around the lower esophagus. PE tubes 3 times. PE tubes are pressure equalization tubes. They are small tubes inserted into the eardrum to help prevent fluid buildup in the middle ear. Muscle biopsy on the upper right leg. Submandibular bilateral gland surgery, which is the procedure to remove or relocate the salivary glands under the jaw on either side of the neck. Tonsils removed. G-tube placement, 7 years old, polyps, Botox injections in salivary glands, and dental surgery. This picture is what Gypsy had drawn for Ryan to show him all the scars she had from the several surgeries she went through, all unnecessary according to Gypsy. The green marks are moles and not scars. Only 4 of the red marks are scars from surgeries. This is a lot less than what she has tried to tell people she went through. She told Dr. Phil she had over 30 surgeries, and that was a lie. Gypsy admits in her book that she has the 1q21.1 microdeletion. Here is some information on what that entails. 1q21.1 microdeletion is a chromosomal change in which a small piece of chromosome 1 is deleted in each cell. The deletion occurs on the long Q arm of the chromosome in a region designated Q21.1. This chromosomal change increases the risk of delayed development, intellectual disability, physical abnormalities, and neurological and psychiatric problems. However, some people with a 1q21.1 microdeletion do not appear to have any associated features. About 75% of all children with a 1q21.1 microdeletion have delayed development, particularly affecting the development of motor skills such as sitting, standing, and walking. The intellectual disability and learning problems associated with this genetic change are usually mild. Distinctive facial features can also be associated with 1q21.1 microdeletions. The changes are usually subtle and can include a prominent forehead, a large, rounded nasal tip, a long space between the nose and upper lip, philtrum, and a high, arched roof of the mouth, palate. Other common signs and symptoms of 1q21.1 microdeletions include an unusually small head, microcephaly, short stature, and eye problems such as clouding of the lenses, cataracts. Less frequently, 1q21.1 microdeletions are associated with heart defects, abnormalities of the genitalia or urinary system, bone abnormalities, particularly in the hands and feet, and hearing loss. Neurological problems that have been reported in people with a 1q21.1 microdeletion include seizures and weak muscle tone, hypotonia. Psychiatric or behavioral problems affect a small percentage of people with this genetic change. These include developmental conditions called autism spectrum disorders that affect communication and social interaction, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, ADHD, and sleep disturbances. Studies suggest that deletions of genetic material from the 1q21.1 region may also be risk factors for schizophrenia. Some people with a 1q21.1 microdeletion do not have any of the intellectual, physical, or psychiatric features described above. In these individuals, the microdeletion is often detected when they undergo genetic testing because they have a relative with the chromosomal change. It is unknown why 1q21.1 microdeletions cause cognitive and physical changes in some individuals, but few or no health problems in others, even within the same family. As you can see by the highlighted areas, everything Dee Dee brought Gypsy to the doctors for is included as a possible effect from having the microdeletion, chromosome disorder. So Dee Dee didn't have MBP, but was, for the most part, generally trying to care for her child. She obviously lied about Gypsy having cancer, though, and got a lot of charities to give them free trips and things because of it. Now let's look at some of Dee Dee's autopsy report. She was beaten, bruised, and bloodied mercilessly by Gypsy and Nicholas, in my opinion. Have you ever seen the crime scene photos? They are so awful I can't show them here. Dee Dee was nearly decapitated with the way her throat was cut. So here's my theory on this. Gypsy said in her book, as she understood it, her mother wanted to cut her throat for no reason. I believe Gypsy cut her mother's throat for no reason except revenge. Didn't she admit to writing on the Facebook post, "I slashed that fat pig"? I know she was pretending to be Nicholas, but if she wasn't pretending to be anyone at all, then that would be her confession, wouldn't it? She cut her mother's throat for no reason because she believed her mother was going to cut her throat for no reason. She said that was the final straw. Let me know what you think in the comments. Was Gypsy way more involved in her mom's murder than we are told? Was Dee Dee much less of a conning liar about all of Gypsy's diseases and more just a mother trying to fight Gypsy's microdeletion? Please like, share, and subscribe. I appreciate you all.